Friends, today you are in for one of those lectures by Neville Goddard that do not merely explain the law, but transform the very mechanism of human thinking, especially on the topics of money, abundance, and inner power. Most people sincerely want wealth. They study techniques, visualize, affirm, and yet remain in the same place for years. Why? Because there is one invisible enemy that nullifies even the strongest practice. Its name is doubt. But today, you will hear something different from the usual advice to believe more strongly or think positively, and not another battle with yourself. Neville shares knowledge that he called the fastest way to destroy doubts. Not in hours, not in days, but in 30 seconds. This is where the truly important part begins, the part that makes wealth feel natural to you, because doubt is not just a thought, not a weakness of character, and not a lack of faith. Neville reveals a mechanism that is rarely discussed, why fighting doubts makes them stronger, why logic and evidence work against you, and why attention is the only food that allows doubts to exist at all. Most importantly, you will learn a technique that at first glance seems suspiciously simple. Yet it is precisely this simplicity that hides its destructive power against old beliefs, old scripts, and the habit of living as if you are constantly asking permission to be rich. As you listen to this lecture, you may notice a strange sensation, as if something inside clicks into place. Tension releases, and the need to prove future wealth to yourself simply vanishes. Because Neville is not just talking about doubts, he is talking about the power of attention, the power of choice, the moment when a person stops being an observer of their life and becomes its source. Simply allow these truths to be heard. And so, ladies and gentlemen, Neville Goddard and an excerpt from a lecture that can forever change your relationship with doubts, money, and your own inner resilience. Today, I am going to tell you about the fastest way I have ever found to get rid of doubts. Not to cope with them, not to reduce them, but to completely destroy them in 30 seconds or less. You see, most people wrestle with doubts for years. They try to overcome them with positive thinking and affirmations, but the doubts keep coming back, again and again, like an uninvited guest who refuses to leave. Today, you will learn why doubts do not disappear, and more importantly, you will learn the one technique that instantly destroys doubts before they can take root in your mind. Are you ready? Then let's begin. First, I will show you what doubt really is. Most people misunderstand it completely. They think doubts are a natural reaction to uncertainty, that they are reasonable, logical, even useful, but that is not true. Doubt is not a reaction to a lack of evidence. Doubt is a reaction to divided consciousness. Let me explain. When you doubt, you are simultaneously holding two opposing realities in your mind. You say you have a desire, and at the same time say you do not. You affirm that the desire will be fulfilled and immediately deny it. You are trying to live in two states at once. Consciousness cannot exist in two states simultaneously. It must choose, and by default, it chooses the state that feels more real to you. For most people, current physical circumstances feel more real than an imagined desire. That is why doubts seem so strong. In reality, they are not strong at all. They are simply the result of divided consciousness when you try to look in two directions at once. Now, the main mistake that keeps doubts alive. When they appear, most people start fighting them, arguing, convincing themselves they're wrong, layering affirmations, seeking evidence to refute them. They exhaust themselves battling an invisible enemy. But every time you fight doubts, you give them reality. Every argument acknowledges their existence. Every attempt to overcome them acknowledges their power over you. You cannot destroy doubts by fighting them. The more you fight, the more real they become. So what is the answer? How do you get rid of doubts in 30 seconds? The answer is so simple that most people overlook it. You get rid of doubts by refusing to acknowledge their existence. Here is the technique. Commit it to memory. The moment doubts appear in your mind, the moment you feel that familiar hesitation, what if it doesn't work? Stop. Do not enter into dialogue, do not argue, do not try to overcome them. Immediately, within 30 seconds, return to the assumption that the desire is already fulfilled. Shift all your attention to the feeling of the wish fulfilled. For example, you assume you are wealthy, and suddenly a thought arises, but right now there's no money in the account. How can this work? Most people pause and start answering that question, giving doubts minutes, hours, days. You do something different. The instant you catch the doubt, you calmly say to yourself, "This does not interest me. This is not my reality." And immediately, in the next 25 seconds, you return to the feeling of wealth, immersing yourself in the state of the fulfilled desire. You do not argue, you do not refute, you simply refuse to pay attention and switch to the desired state. That's how you destroy doubts in 30 seconds, by depriving them of the only thing that sustains them, your attention. Why is timing so important? Doubts are like seeds. When they first appear, they are small and weak, no roots, no power, just a fleeting thought. If you give them attention, argue, try to resolve them, the seed begins to take root. In a minute of continuous attention, it starts to feel real. In an hour, a serious problem. In a day, truth. That is why you have a small window, about 30 seconds, while the doubt is still weak and can easily vanish. If you return to the assumption of the fulfilled desire within that window, the doubt simply withers, having no soil to grow in. For the next 7 days, become a doubt hunter. Your task is not to avoid doubts, that's impossible, but to catch them immediately and switch within 30 seconds. A simple mental countdown. You notice a doubt, you say to yourself, "There is a doubt. This does not interest me. This is not my reality." And in the remaining 25 seconds, fully immerse yourself in the feeling of the fulfilled desire. You do not argue, you do not refute, you simply refuse to pay attention and switch to the desired state. For the next 7 days, become a doubt hunter. Your task is not to avoid doubts, that's impossible, but to catch them immediately and switch within 30 seconds. A simple mental countdown. You notice a doubt, you say to yourself, "There is a doubt. This does not interest me. This is not my reality." And in the remaining 25 seconds, fully immerse yourself in the feeling of the fulfilled desire. You do not argue, you do not refute, you simply refuse to pay attention and switch to the desired state. After a few days, something remarkable happens. Doubts appear less frequently and disappear almost instantly because your consciousness has learned that they deserve no attention, no participation, no reality in your world. A woman came to me who had been trying to manifest a loving relationship. She practiced the techniques daily, but nothing happened, and hope was fading. When she visualized the desired state, she then spent the rest of the day fighting doubts, trying to convince herself it would work. I told her, "You spend 2 minutes in the state of fulfillment and 2 hours in the state of doubt. Of course nothing changes." I taught her the 30-second technique. After 3 days, she noticed that anxiety and despair were gone. She stopped doubting whether it would work, not because she convinced herself, but because she stopped feeding the doubts with attention. 2 weeks later, she met exactly the partner she had imagined, but more importantly, she gained a tool for life. Doubts have no power except the power you give them with your attention. Doubts and faith are not opposites. They are the same thing, only directed in different directions. Both are assumptions. The question is which assumption you give your attention to. When you practice the 30-second rule, you are not strengthening faith by destroying doubts. You are simply choosing which assumption to focus on. A doubt appears, switch to fulfillment. It appears again, switch again and again, without exception. This is not suppression. Suppression is when you push something down but still give it energy. This is replacement. You swap one assumption for another so quickly that the unwanted one never takes root. After 2 to 4 weeks of consistent practice, a permanent shift occurs.
doubts almost stop appearing, and consciousness naturally stays in the state of fulfillment. You understand that there are infinite possible realities, and the one you constantly attend to becomes yours. Starting right now, choose one desire: money, love, health, success. Make a firm decision. For the next 7 days, practice the 30-second rule with complete dedication. Catch every doubt in 5 seconds and switch to fulfillment in the remaining 25. No excuses like "this doubt seems reasonable." Every doubt, immediate switch. Do this faithfully for 7 days, and you will discover something incredible. Doubts will stop bothering you. The assumption of fulfillment will become natural, easy, automatic. When all your attention is focused on the fulfilled desire, fulfillment becomes inevitable. The